Welcome once again to my channel, lovely people. So in today's tutorial we're going to be making a pant trouser with crop top, notch collar crop top. I have this fabric is 3.5 inches and I'm going to use it for our style today. So I went ahead to measure the length of my pants and I added 1.5 inches to the length. That will be for hemming allowance, and I also subtracted 2 inches for my waistband. So I'm attaching waistband to it, and that's why I subtracted 2 inches for my waistband as well. Okay, so I also added 1.5 inches, just as I said, for my hemming allowance. So I am going to measure my hip from my waist to my hip. I'll mark it. From my waist to my crotch, I'll mark it. Then from my waist to my knee, I'll also mark it. Okay, so after making the markings, the next thing we are going to do is to extend all the markings with our straight ruler. Okay, so note that I got this the cutting of this fabric, like the space we have, the inches I have here, by dividing my hip circumference by 4, then adding extra 4.5 inches to it. Okay, so that is what I got to be able to get this fabric, and it's folded into 2. So I will just go ahead and label the lines as waist, hip, crotch, knee, and length as an allowance as well. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my hip circumference by 4. I'm going to add extra 1 inch to it. Okay, take note, divide your hip circumference by 4, add 1 inch to it, then whatever you get, you are going to mark it on the waist, on the hip, and on the crotch as well. Then you're going to rule it into a straight line, forming your crotch line as well. So I am going to use 2.5 inches for my crotch extension. Okay, so I'll go ahead and mark it, and after marking it on the part where both line meet, that look like L, okay, that point where they meet, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead and pick up my curve ruler and I'll connect it, and that will form our front crotch. So after I was done doing that, I am going to measure from the folded part to that our 2.5 inches crotch extension, that line where we mark our 2.5 inches. I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to be measuring it down to the straight line, down to my hem, and I'm going to use my straight ruler to rule it into a straight line. And that, from that point to the folded point is going to be our workspace. Okay, so after I was done measuring, I connected it to my straight ruler. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to take my tape and measure from that point to this folded part, and I'm going to divide the tape into 2 and get the midpoint of our workspace, and I'm going to mark on the midpoint straight from my crotch line down to my hem line. So once I was done doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to come over to my waist. I am going to divide my actual waist measurement divided by 4. Okay, I'm going to mark my actual waist measurement. Okay, your actual waist measurement, divide it by 4. Then whatever you get, mark it on the waistline. Okay, after marking it, you are going to add extra 1 inch to the marking. You measure out extra 1 inch, then you are going to mark it. Then after marking it, you are going to measure from this I'm going to measure from this crotch line. I'm going to measure from there 4 inches, which is my nipple to nipple line divided by 2. Then I'm going to mark it. Then I'll go down by 3.5 inches. That is going to be my dart length. Okay, so the nipple to nipple measurement I mark is for my dart, and I'm going to go down by 3.5 inches. That is my dart length. I'll mark it into a straight line. Then after marking into a straight line, I'll come in and go out on both line of that dart. I will go in and go out by 0.5 inches. I'll mark it, then after which I'll connect to the straight line, and that is how our dart is going to look like. Okay, so I was done doing that. The next thing I'm going to do is to add extra 1 inch allowance to the real waist measurement. So note that you add 1 inch for that allowance and add extra 1 inch for joining allowance. I'm going to connect it to my hip. Okay, so after connecting it to my hip, the next thing I am going to do is to, because this is a palazzo pant trouser, it is not fitted, I'm just go over to my knee line and I'll measure 0.5 inches. Then the folded part as well, 0.5 inches. Then on my length, 0.5 inches. And I'm going to be connecting everything. Okay, so if you're making a fitted pant, go ahead and use your actual round knee measurement divided by 2 and mark it. Okay, but I'm not doing making a fitted pant, I'm making a palazzo pant. That is why I'm only subtracting 0.5 inches. So please take note of that. So I was done connecting all the lines, and the next thing we are going to do is to cut out our front part. So after cutting out our front part, I'm going to bring in another fabric, and that is what we're going to be using for our back parts as well. So this is the fabric we are going to be using for our back part. Okay, and this fabric is 2 inches longer than the front part. Okay, this back part is 2 inches longer than the front part. So I'm going to place the front part on it. After placing the front part on it, I am going to extend the crotch line. I'm going to use that same 2 inches I used to extend the front crotch line, 2.5 inches, sorry. That same 2.5 inches is what I'm going to use to extend the back crotch line, and I'll extend the knee line and the hem line as well. Okay, so after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to come over to the waist part of the front, and I'll go up by 1.5 inches. Okay, so it means that the back is going to be longer than the front by 1.5 inches, and that measurement is going to I am going to measure it on the waist. Okay, that is the upper waist, and that is because of the hip that we have at the back. Okay, so after that, I'm going to be ruling 2 inches from the front crotch. I'm going to be marking in 2 inches because that is going to be my allowance. Okay, and that same 2 inches will form our back crotch, and I'm going to connect it with my free hand. Okay, so after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is that I am going to show you another way that you can go about your back crotch, and that is tracing on the front crotch. After tracing on front crotch while it is placed on the back crotch, you are going to raise it up. After raising it up, you come in from that traced line, you come in by 1.5 inches or 2. Then after that, you connect it from the crotch extension to that 1.5 inches or 2 that you came in. Then you go over to the waist side, that is the folded part, and come out by 1.5 inches if that is the case of what you use for the crotch, or 2 inches if that is the case. Okay, but anyway, I am not making use of that, so just pay attention. You understand the one I am making use of, and this particular one I'm making use of, it works perfectly. I've been using it for all my clients styles, pant trouser styles, and it works well as well. So that is what I'm going to be using. Okay, so after that, I will come in on the waist by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect it up to that 1.5 inches that I extended on the back waist. Okay, then after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to add my allowances on the down. So I'll go over to my knee line, and I am going to measure 1 inch on the knee line, then go over to my hem, measure 1 inch on the hem as well. Then I'm going to be connecting those points to my back hip extension, and after that, I'm going to cut out my back because my back part is ready. So I have this fabric and we are going to be using it to cut our notch collar crop top. Okay, so I have two pieces of fabric here. So one is shorter in width and the other one is longer in width. So the one that is shorter in width is the back part and the one that is longer in width is the front part, and both of them are folded into two. Okay, so I use my half length plus 1.5 inch addition to get the length of my crotch top. So you can use whatever you want. You can add 3 inches to your half length or 4. So I also added 1.5 inches for my hemming allowance. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to set our front part aside and work on our back. So our back, how I got the space I have here is by dividing my bust circumference by 4 and adding extra 2.5 inches allowance to it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to mark from my shoulder to my bust, then from my shoulder again, from my chest first, then to my bust. Then I already have my hemline and allowance, just as I stated earlier. So after that, I'm going to use my ruler and connect those two lines together into a straight line. Once I was done doing that, I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement by 2. I am going to mark it up to my chest line and rule it into a straight line, and that becomes our back armhole. Okay, I'll go ahead and slope my shoulder by 1 inch, and I'm going to be using 3 inches neck width, then 1.5 inches neck depth for our back parts. So after I was done doing that, I'm going to connect the necklines. Then I'll go ahead and slope my shoulder by 1 inch. After sloping my shoulder by 1 inch, I'm going to divide what is left of the armhole line into 2, get the midpoint. After making a marking on the midpoint, I am going to divide my bust circumference into 4, and whatever I get, I'm going to mark it. So I'll be connecting that point with the midpoint together to form our back armhole. So the next thing I'm going to do after that is to extend that bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to extend it down to my hemline and I'm going to rule it into a straight line. So while making a crop top, you use your bust measurement for both under bust, for your length, for your waist, everywhere, because it's a crop top. So you don't need half length or waist measurement. No, you use your bust measurements, your bust circumference divided by 4 for everything. So after I was done doing that, I'm going to add extra 2 inches allowance and connect it, and we're going to cut out. So here I have my front part, and as you can see, our front part is wider than our back part, just as I stated earlier. Okay, so how I got the wideness for this front part is I divided my bust circumference into 4, and after doing that I added extra 6 inches. Okay, extra 6 inches to that. Okay, that is how I got this the space for the front part. Okay, so go ahead and divide your bust circumference into 4 and add extra 6 allowance to it. So I'm going to measure from my shoulder to my chest, I'll mark it, then from my shoulder to my bust, I'll mark it. I already have my length, which is the same length as the back, and also 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to fold in 3 inches from the folded part. Okay, so note that this fabric is folded. Fold in 3 inches, and I'm going to pin it down. After pinning it down, and I'm going to measure from that folded part, from that beginning. Then I'll divide my shoulder measurement into 2 and rule it. But before I do that, on a second thought, I decided to open up the 3 inches I folded, because I want this tutorial to be well understood by our beginners. Okay, so folding it into will be a bit complicated for them, so I'm going to open it up, okay, and spread it wide so that our beginner can be able to follow along. So I went ahead to open it up and spread it wide, and after doing that, I now measured their same 3 inches and marked from the shoulder line down to the hem. Okay, so you can see the 3 inches line that I have marked. Okay, so this 3 inches line, we are going to set it aside and we're going to start our measurement from the line that will mark. Okay, so we're going to start our measurement after the 3 inches. Okay, so from that line after the 3 inches, I'm going to measure my shoulder measurement divided by 2 and I'm going to mark it. Then after marking it, I'll rule it into a straight line down to my chest line. Okay, after ruling it into a straight line, I'm going to slope my shoulder by 1 inch. Then I'm going to be using neck width of 3 inches, then neck depth of 3 inches. So that is, we are using 3 by 3, which is standard neckline. Okay, 3 inches long and 3 inches wide. Okay, so next I am going to, after sloping my shoulder, divide my armhole into 2, mark the midpoint, then come in by 0.5 inches and divide my bust circumference by 4 and mark it, after which I'll connect all the 3 points to form our front armhole line. Okay, after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect our neckline. Okay, the 3 inches wideness and the 3 inches length, I will go ahead and connect it. And after connecting it, I'm going to extend the neckline below to the 3 inches we set aside. I'll extend it to that 3 inches. Okay, so after extending to that 3 inches, the next thing I'm going to do is to extend my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to extend that line down to the hem of my crop top and I'm going to rule it into a straight line. Then I'll go ahead and add extra 2 inches for our allowance, just as we did for the back. So the next thing is to come back to the 3 inches we set aside. So on the line where we mark the 3 inches we set aside, I am going to measure 1.5 inches and I'm going to measure it up to my chest line. Take notes. Okay, I'm going to measure it up to my chest line and it's going to stop at that chest line. Okay, after measuring to my chest line, I'm going to pick up my straight ruler and rule it into a straight line. Okay, then I will go over to the neck part of the 3 inches we set aside. Okay, the neck part, I'll go in by 0.5 inches and after going in by 0.5 inches, I'll extend it to, I'll use my ruler to extend it to the 1.5 inches which stopped at the chest line. I'll extend it and after that I'll go ahead and cut it out. So after I was done cutting out, we are going to set it aside, and before we set it aside, we are going to cut out lining. Okay, we are going to cut out lining for the neck. Okay, so we are going to go in from the front neck. Okay, we are going to go in by 3 inches. Okay, we're going to go in by 3 inches or 2.5 inches, then use it to cut out our lining. Okay, so I have this blue fabric and I have used it to cut out our lining. So you can see the way I cut it out, that is the same way you're going to cut it out. It should not be less than 2 inches. Okay, it should not be less than 2 inches. So the next thing we are going to do is to go ahead and join the shoulder. But before we do that, we are going to work on the lining we cut. So we are going to add esteem to the lining. Okay, we're going to add gum. Sorry, we're adding gum to the lining. Then I'm going to measure our armhole. Okay, the front and the back armhole, and after measuring it, I'm going to cut out our sleeve. So whatever you be using for your lining for the front part of your crop top, please ensure that you add hard gum to it if the lining, the fabric you are using for the lining is not thick. Okay, so I have this two fabric here, and that I've cut out the length I need for my sleeve. Okay, and they are both folded into two. Okay, so he also had my hemming allowance as well, so that is what make up this length. Okay, so I'm going to go down on this part by 3 inches, and I'm going to mark it. After that, I'll pick up my straight ruler and connect it to the folded part. Okay, after connecting it to the folded part, I will measure it from the line up to the, I will measure the curved line. I'll divide it into two, mark on the midpoint. After that, I will measure the other second line. Okay, mark on the midpoint as well. Okay, thereby having 2 points there. Then on the point below, I'll go down by 0.5 inches, and on the point above, I'll go up by 0.5 inches. I'm going to connect. So if you are conversant with cutting a basic sleeve, you won't find this difficult. After that, I am going to get mark on my bicep divided by 2. After marking it, I am going to connect it to a straight line. Then I also take my measuring tape to measure if what I have on the curve of the sleeve align with what I have on my armhole curve. After that, I'm going to cut out. So note that this sleeve is not a fitted sleeve, is very free. So I was not cutting our sleeve. The next thing I'm going to do is to set it aside, and I'm going to pick up our pant trouser, and we're going to continue from where we stopped. So I have this fabric here because this main fabric I am using is not enough for pocket. So I'll be using this fabric here, and I have two pieces of it. Okay, so this fabric here is 12 inches by length. Okay, in length, the length of it is 12 inches, and the wideness on fold is 8 inches. Okay, so I am going to go ahead to open it up, and remember is for both pockets is on fold. So I'm going to measure 2.5 inches on the upper part of the side. Then I will measure 7.5 inches down. Okay, after that, I'm going to mark it, bring in my ruler and connect the point. After connecting the point, I will bring in my, okay, I will cut the I'll make the cutting first on my main fabric, after which I'm going to transfer it to the fabric I'm using for the pocket. So just pay attention to what I'm doing, you understand. So I cut out black interfacing for this pant trouser because I want to give it structure. Okay, so I cut out black lining for the fabric. Okay, so if you want to, if you're using Ankara fabric and you want to give it structure, you can add lining to yours just as I did. Okay, so over to my machine here, I'm going to start joining. So I'm going to place the pockets on the front of the line of the front part of our trouser, and I'm going to align the pocket curve of the pocket fabric and the main fabric as well, placing it front facing front. Then after that, I'm going to place our lining on top. Then I'm going to sew. After sewing, I'll give it a good notch, and I'm going to top stitch as well. So I went ahead to join the pocket side, and after joining I notched and top stitch on the pocket side as well. So after I was done top stitching, the next thing I'm going to do is to join the pocket fabric, the down below. I'm going to join it at the front, so I'm going to fold it this way and join it on the right side. Okay, after joining it on the right side, I am going to flip it back, okay, concealing the joint part on the inside. Okay, so this is how I join it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and mark that 2.5 inches that was subtracted to form our pocket. I will mark it on it, and I'm going to place the main fabric there. Okay, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead to run 0.5 inches stitch on top of the main fabric, the pocket side of the main fabric. So after I was done running the 0.5 inches on top, I went ahead to place it on that 2.5 inches that I mark on the pocket fabric, and I pin it down. Okay, know that I did this same thing on the other part of the front. Okay, so here I have my back part, and I went ahead to turn all the side with lining, and I also sew my darts on the back as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to join the both crotch of the back. Okay, I'm going to bring both back and join the crotch. Okay, so note that if you want to attach your zipper on the back crotch, this is how you go about it, but mine, I'm not going to be attaching my zipper on the back crotch. I'm going to attach it on the side. Okay, so I'll go ahead and join my back crotch with 0.5 inches, and after doing that I'll go over to my table, and it will be time to start joining the back and the front. Okay, so note that I will also join the front crotch as well. No, remember I'm attaching my zipper on the side, so I will join the crotch of the front as well, and I'm going to sew my darts on the front as well. So I was not doing that, and the next thing I'm going to do is to place my back trouser and my front trouser. Okay, I'm going to place it front facing front, and I'll go ahead and join. Okay, so after joining, I'm going to be leaving one part which is on the left. That is where I'm going to be attaching my zipper, so I'll leave a space for where I'm going to be attaching my zipper. Okay, so after joining, I'll go ahead and attach my zipper, and it will be time for us to attach our band. So I went ahead to cut out a 5-inch band. Remember, we remove 2 inches band, which when when unfold 2 inches, but when it is open 4 inches. So I added extra 1 inch to that 4 inches, making it 5 inches. So because we need allowance for joining, so I'll go ahead and join my band, and I'm going to bring it back for us to see. So you can see this fabric I have. That is what we are going to use to join, to sew our band. That's what we're going to be using as our band. So I was done joining our band, and also attach my hook and eye on it. And this is the look of our trouser. It's looking very gorgeous. So while I was joining the side of my trouser, I left about 7.5 inches on the side, because I had always desired to have a trouser that has a slit on the side. Okay, so I did this on both leg, and I love the look of this pant trouser with slits. It's very fine. You can try it, honestly. So I am going to set this trouser aside, and the next thing we are going to do is to go back to our crop top. So I have my top crop top fabric here, and I went ahead to attach my stay on the lining piece, on the blue fabric that we use for our lining piece. And after attaching my stay, the next thing I'm going to do is to pin it down on my main fabric, okay, the front part of our crop top. I'm going to pin it down, and after that I'm going to come in by 0.5 inches and mark. Then from that 0.5 inches I'll measure another 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to measure another 2 inches and mark. After marking, I'm going to sew from that 2 inches down to the length of. So I was done sewing, and this is what we have. I'll go ahead and notch it and trim off the excess and turn it inside out. So you can see how it's looking very beautiful already. Okay, so if I fold it this way, you see our neckline, our crotch collar is always almost forming already, and it's looking very fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in the back part, and I'm going to place it front facing front. I'll go over to my machine to attach, to sew the shoulder. Okay, I'm going to join the front shoulder and the back shoulder, and after that I'm going to bring it back for us to see. Okay, so I was done joining the front shoulder and the back shoulder together, just as I said, and this is what we have. I also went ahead to attach my sleeve, and it's looking very fine. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to notch the back neckline. After notching the neckline, I am going to bring in my both front neckline and measure in where the sewing stop. After measuring it, then I'll mark on it. After marking on it, from that point I'll measure the remaining part of the neckline. And as you can see, what I have here is 8.75, almost 9 inches. So I have this blue fabric that is remaining from the after cutting my lining, so that's what we're going to use to cut our collar. So I am going to fold it into two. Okay, so pay close attention to how I'm folding it. I want I to fold it into two. After folding into two, I will refold again. Okay, thereby having a part that is not cut out and a part that is cut out. Okay, so the part that is not cut out, that is well closed and well folded, I am going to measure 3 inches. I'll go up by 3 inches on that point. Then after that, I'm going to measure the 8.75 that we have for our neckline. I'll measure it and mark it and add extra 0.5 inches for our joining allowance. Then on that part where I added 0.5 inches, I'm going to go up by 2.5 inches, and I'll pick up my curve ruler and I'll connect. So please ensure to pin it down, because I have to pin it down properly because this fabric was not staying. Okay, so I had to pin it down. So after pinning, I connected and I was done cutting. So this is what we have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and add my stay to it. After adding my stay, I'm going to join just the sides. Okay, I'm going to join the two sides and I'll bring it back for us to see. So I was done gumming my stay on it, and I went ahead to join the side just as I said. And another thing I did, that I folded in 0.5 inches on one side. Please take note, I did that on one side, not on both sides. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to divide into two and notch both the midpoint of all the sides. Okay, I'll notch the midpoint and I'm going to bring in my fabric and I'm going to place it. I'm going to place the right side of my collar. I'm going to place it on the wrong side of my main fabric. Okay, take note of how I place it, because after placing, I went ahead to sew it. Okay, so after sewing it, I'm going to flip that part where I folded in 0.5 inches, and I'm going to top stitch on it. So please ensure to notch properly and trim off the excess as well. And once I was done doing that, I'll go ahead and hem my sleeve the length of my fabric, and also use my hemming gum to hem down the remaining part, okay, of the front lining. And I was done doing that, I went ahead to also attach my buttons, and this is the final look of our crop top. Okay, after attaching my button, I created my buttonhole and everything. So this is how it looks so gorgeous. It came out so well. So please, if you have watched at this point, I have not liked, you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do that. Hit on the likes button, subscribe, and share and like as well. Remember, when next I drop another tutorial, you are going to get notified if you do that. So our crop top is looking very fine, and I love everything about it. Go ahead and try it. Trust me, you are going to love it if you follow the same way. Thank you so much for watching. I wish to see you next time that I drop another tutorial. Bye.